Hi, today we're going to be talking about how to interpret the results of your hearing test. So if you look at the test in front of you, you'll probably see a graph. The graph will have circles on it and X's on it. The circles are for your right ear. The X's are for your left ear. You might also see some color coding. If you do, the red is for your right ear, the blue is for your left ear. Now, when we look at this graph, from left to right shows the different pitches that were tested. So on the left-hand side of the graph, you're going to see low pitches, like bass. On the right side, you're going to see high pitches, like treble. And then all those pitches in between. So it's like a piano, from low over to high, or bass to treble. From top to bottom, you're going to see loudness. Up at the top represents very, very quiet sounds. Down at the bottom represents extremely loud sounds. And then you're going to see at what level the beeps had to be for you to actually hear them. So anything closer to the top means that you have better hearing. Anything towards the bottom means you have more hearing loss. There are different categories for the amount of hearing loss that you have. So anything between 0 and 15 decibels is considered to be normal hearing. Between 15 and 25 decibels is considered a slight hearing loss. 25 to 40 decibels is a mild hearing loss. 40 to 55 decibels is a moderate hearing loss. Between 55 and 70 decibels is a moderately severe hearing loss. 70 to 90 is a severe hearing loss. 90 plus is profound. So if you see all the X's and O's right at the top, 15 or better, you have normal hearing. If you're not worried about your hearing, your audiologist likely isn't either. If those X's and O's are below that, you have some amount of hearing loss. Now, hearing loss doesn't affect all pitches the same way. Most people can hear some pitches well, while other ones they're not hearing as well. That can make speech muffled, unclear. It can often make people sound like they're mumbling. So in that case, you might notice, for instance, at 500 hertz, so for that low pitch, maybe you have normal hearing. But if you look at a high pitch like 4000 hertz, you might have some hearing loss. And then you can see what degree of hearing loss that you have. If we think about speech and sound, between 500 and 4000 hertz are very important frequencies for understanding speech. Something else to take a look at is those little brackets on the test. The brackets can look like a triangle, or they can look more like a square bracket. Either way, they're representing what's called your bone conduction thresholds. Now, your bone conduction thresholds are a measure of how well your inner ear and deeper into your ear are hearing. So if you have a blockage in your ear, we can still measure how you're hearing deeper in the ear by measuring your bone conduction thresholds. If you have a conductive hearing loss, you're going to see a large gap between those brackets and the X's and the O's. If you have a sensory neural hearing loss, it means those brackets are going to be pretty close to where the X's and the O's are. A conductive hearing loss means that sound isn't transferring properly through your outer or middle ear, and that's why you have trouble with your hearing. If you have a sensory neural hearing loss, it means that even though sound can travel through your outer and middle ear, you actually have hearing loss that's caused by damage to your hair cells or the auditory nerve. If both of these things are happening at the same time, so if your bone conduction thresholds show some hearing loss, but you also have a gap where your your actual air conduction thresholds, those X's and O's, are even lower, that means you have a mixed hearing loss. So it's a combination of at least two different types of hearing loss at that point. Most people with age-related hearing loss or noise exposure will have a sensory neural hearing loss. A conductive hearing loss could be caused by too much wax in your ear, fluid behind the eardrum, or something else that's causing sound not to transfer well deeper into your ear. If you look at the speech results, you should be able to see how well you could hear speech in quiet. Those results will look something like a percentage at a certain decibel level. So for instance, maybe it's 96% at 60 decibels. If that's the case, it means at 60 decibels, you could repeat back pretty much all the words, which is great. But you might see something else. You might see 50% at 70 dB. If that's the case, it means that even in a quiet room, you're having trouble understanding words, even if the volume's been increased. If we look at another result, you might see the results of what's called the quick SIN test. The quick SIN measures how well you can understand speech in a noisy environment. For the quick SIN, the larger the number means the more trouble you're having in noise. So you can imagine these results as showing how much separation you need of speech from noise to be able to hear it. So if your quick SIN result is low, it means that speech and noise can be at a similar level and you can still understand it. If your quick SIN result is high, it means that speech needs to be a lot louder than the background for you to understand it. And you'll notice this day to day. You'll notice in a group conversation or at a restaurant that you're really struggling. Once you see all of that information, it's up to you what to do with it. So if your hearing is normal, you might only just check your hearing over time to make sure that nothing happens without you being aware of it over time. If you have early hearing loss, you might be thinking about whether or not you're ready to do anything for it, or maybe you just need a little bit of communication strategies and help with that. If you have hearing loss and you're noticing trouble day to day, then it might be time to start considering whether or not hearing aids are a good fit for you. If you have any questions, my name's Alicia at Birdsong Audiology.